have not become a patron of the Geocache Talk Network, what are you waiting for? Patron levels start as low as a Bison Tube level at $3 a month. To sign up is easy. Simply go to the Geocache Talk website and click on the Become a Patron button, or go to patreon.com/Geocache Talk. Patrons now get the famous Blackout coin, invites to special events, and other really great items throughout the year. Become a patron today. Have you subscribed to FTF Magazine yet? FTF Magazine is the #1 geocaching magazine available. It is a quarterly magazine that you can be part of. Submit your geocaching milestones and adventures to be published. FTF Magazine is also interactive with puzzles to solve and a hunt to find Spartacus. If you can solve the puzzle or find Spartacus, then you will be entered in to win a special pack tag. Every new subscription, you will receive a special swag pack. Subscribing is easy. Just visit FTF's website, ftfgeo.com. Don't miss out and subscribe today.
Hello and welcome to Challenge Talk, part of the Geocache Talk Network. We are broadcasting live now on the first Sunday of the month. Feel free to jump over to YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter to watch the broadcast live and join the wonderful and active chat room, or listen to the entire show later on your favorite podcast player.
In this episode, we are ringing in the brand new year by taking a look forward to what might be in store with special guests from Geocaching HQ, Chris Ronan, also known as Rock Chalk. We also have prizes to give away each show to our listeners. Between each show, be sure to email your challenge cache finds to challengetalkpodcast@gmail.com and you could be a winner.
And later in the show, we also play our special game exclusively for our live audience, the
Wheel of Challenges.
So listen live, get your email app ready, and follow instructions when the time comes so you can have a chance at winning the grand prize, a 1-year membership to Project GC. And later on, we'll also highlight some of the challenge caches you've found, and someone would win our monthly giveaway. We are your hosts, Emily and Geoff from Cache the Line, and we also have with us one of our illustrious Geocache Talk network podcast hosts, Gary.
Hey, Gary.
Slinker, G-Slink.
Hey, team.
Hey.
What are you doing here?
What am I doing here? What are you doing here? What am I doing here? No.
What day is this?
What day is this? No. Look,
it brings us to our big news announcement first. What's going on with the podcasts?
Breaking news. Yeah, a lot of news that we're going to get to over the next few weeks. But yeah, tell me where you want me to start, and I'll start with. You want to start with Sundays or?
Well, why are we broadcasting tonight on a Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central?
That's right. Is it 6 p.m. Pacific time? Is that correct,
Yep.
Emily?
That's where I am.
Cool.
6 p.m.
Yeah. So we had some discussions over the holidays, and we kind of decided to make a little bit of some changes, a little bit of to the network. We wanted to highlight shows a little bit differently this year. We feel very strongly that Challenge Talk, all the shows are doing tremendous. And we wanted to kind of do things a little bit differently and allow for a little more highlighting during Sunday of these great shows that I think some people are unable to see. Challenge Talk being on a Thursday night was great, but I think that we can really help people be able to see it maybe a little more often if it's on Sundays. Also, Gadget Talk is doing gangbusters, so we wanted to allow for Gadget Talk their own. We left Tuesdays to Gadget Talk, so they do their whole thing. And Puzzle Talk is doing great as well, but it was kind of an odd mix of every 2 weeks it was swapping back and forth between Gadget Talk and Puzzle Talk. And so we thought maybe it'd be better to just leave Gadget Talk on Tuesdays. That's their anchor. They're going to stay on Tuesdays. Now they're on every Tuesday. So Hats
Awesome.
off to the Gadget Talk people. Yeah. But we're going to share the rest of the network is going to share Sundays. And I think that I think it's going to work out great. So let me kind of give a little bit more about how this is going to work. So Challenge Talk is going to be normally on every first Sunday of every month, just like they're on the first week of every month they were anyway. But now they're going to be the first Sunday of every month. Then we're going to swap back and forth between Geocache Talk will be on the next week. So like next week is Geocache Talk. And then it's going to switch to Puzzle Talk. And then it's going to go back to Geocache Talk. And I think that this mix will be nice. It gives people a lot of differentials, different shows to watch on Sunday. It's not just Jesse and I. We like to, allow for a little bit of a mix with these other shows, and same guests, same format. But I think overall it's going to be great. It really is going to be a lot of fun to expand on what people are able to view on Sundays. So they're going to get a lot more exposure to challenges, which I think is incredible, and also some more exposure to puzzles. So.
Oh no, Gary just spilled the beans.
I just did.
All right. Well, here we go. Here's to a new year and where it's going to take us.
Yeah, it'll be good because those very topical podcasts on Sunday will be new to some people, and well, hopefully we'll just get an increased community through all of that shared on Sunday nights.
Exactly. I love our community.
Oh yeah,
So,
they're great.
Glad to be here on Sundays too.
So last month we posed a little challenge to everybody for 2022 to try to complete a new type of fizzy grid, completing that 9x9 grid of difficulty and terrain challenges, but if possible using some other property like an attribute grid or a type grid. Has anybody made any progress towards that? Or what are you working on currently for challenges if you are?
So no progress made yet, but what I did was map out some possibilities. So as far as fizzy goes, I need one more cache in Oregon to complete an Oregon fizzy. So that should be easy, I hope. And then I'm about halfway through with a few other types. So that'll be more of a long haul. And I don't have everything mapped out, but I'm excited about the different tools that have popped up, the different statistics that brought this to our attention, and seeing what I can do. And then all my other goals are kind of date-based. But those are my fizzy goals. How about you, Geoff?
Yeah. I am working on one more cache type fizzy grid. There's a challenge for having 3 cache type fizzy grids completed, and I've got traditional and unknown. Just missing the next closest would be letterbox. So I think I've got 1 or 2 DTs left to complete that one. So that's next on the list.
Awesome.
But other than that, for 2022, I'm still trying to complete the date found year grid for challenge cache finds.
Cool.
And then there's some challenges people like to do for making a darker shade of the grid. So if you look on your official profile stats on geocaching.com, the color of the date in the year grid gets 1 shade darker at 11 and then another shade darker at 26 finds per date of the year. So I'm working on 11 right now, and I think I've got a couple of days left. 26, that's a whole lot. That's 26 times 366 days. And yeah, so I've got a couple left for 11 and then a whole bunch more for 26. Probably not going to complete that this year. Maybe
Cool.
next year.
So mine sounds pretty small. I decided this year I'm going to work on having 2 per cache per date on the calendar. I just don't have the local caches to be able to do it. But I've been saving up adventure labs locally. I can get 1 stage, per date. That helped. I just tested that on Friday. That worked out for me. So 2, maybe 3. We'll see if I can work in 3 finds per date. But that's my big goal. I'm not changing any colors, but I'm changing numbers.
Gary, are you trying to work on any challenges?
I'm kind of keeping up with a few in the area. I love Project GC. I know you guys cover a lot of Project GC, but I love looking at Project GC from periodically and going, oh, I'm going to be in this part of the country. Let me look and see if I've fulfilled any challenges in that area. And once in a while, I do. And it's like, oh, I got to put that on the list because, it's got a little check mark by it and I can go do that. So I'm going to be making a trip over to Derek's neck of the woods here in a few weeks as we're continuing to plan for Cache Fest. And so I need to look and see if I can fulfill some more challenges over in that section of the world that I don't get to go to very often. So
That's great. I love that part of traveling, seeing what I can get exposed to in a different area.
That's always fun.
Yeah. So we posed this challenge to all of you listeners as well. And so we want to hear your progress. So if you haven't already, start working towards that and send us an email. We'd love to hear from you, challengetalkpodcast@gmail.com, and let us know your progress.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
We like to also do a little bit of a status update from Project GC challenges every month, just to see how the challenge caching landscape is growing every month. So as of later this afternoon, based on Project GC's checker statistics, we now have 7,297 active scripts. These are all of the back-end code things that handle every type of challenge that's out there. And that's up 162 from last year. I say every month, there's still new scripts being written. What are these people writing? Haven't all the ideas already been done? Man.
Thank goodness not.
We have 39,003 unique challenges. So as most people know, there could be duplicate challenges in different parts of the world, different countries and whatnot. So unique challenges is 39,003, up 475 from last year. So, and that can include archive challenges as well. So this is just everything raw on Project GC. We have 47,944 active tags. So these are basically all of the checkers per unique GC code. So every challenge cache listing. And that's up 640 from last month.
Wow.
Last year.
That's incredible.
So, yeah, it seems like there's been some growth over the winter, over Christmas.
Yeah.
And we have 32,557 active challenge caches worldwide. And that is by geocaching.com's advanced search with the challenge cache attribute. That's up 220. So that's 220 new active challenge caches worldwide. Wow.
Great.
So that's pretty good. Mm-hmm. Being the first show of 2022, I thought it'd be interesting to see what the current challenge cache count is for the last couple of years, to see how the last 2 years have affected all of that. So if we look back to 2021, there are, based on that same search, there are 3,381 active challenge caches placed in 2021. Interestingly, there were more caches placed in 2020. So there were 4,039 still active placed in 2020. So it looks like it kind of dropped a bit last year. And 2019, 3,560. So there is still kind of hovering, but it's dropped a little since 2020. Hopefully it'll pick up again soon.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Hope. Who knows
this
if the pandemic caused any problems or not? I don't know. Yeah.
And this year there are a whole whopping 28 challenge caches placed in 2022.
That's pretty good. Only 9 days in.
Yeah.
And a number of those are Ontario. I've seen them pop up, and they're showing up. So there's
now we say that your neck of the woods, but actually Ontario's big, so
huge.
Yeah, so it's kind of like its own country, because Ontario, Jeff's up there. Jeff, run up to that part of. You're like, you know how long it'd take me to get to that part of Ontario? Are you crazy?
Yeah. Well, I think the hot spots for challenges in Ontario around Ottawa. There's a few people who love challenges up there, and then down in the Hamilton region, Niagara, that area, it's just packed with challenges.
Yeah.
Cool.
Someday. Goals.
Yeah.
Another news item since last month. The new Reach the Peak month has begun January 3rd We are now attempting to climb Aconcagua. Aconcagua? Has anybody looked up how to pronounce that? Or is it
No.
just
Say that 3 times.
I'm glad you said it.
I'll look it up for you.
That's 6,960 meters, or points. And you get top points for finding multi-caches, which gets you 775 per find. I think another month already has highlighted multis, but I think the points are also growing a little bit each month too.
Yeah, I know I got a few yesterday with 725 points based on 15 or more favorite points.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was up there too, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
right,
and you
here
can
you
find
go.
all the information.
All right. It's Spanish.
Oh, let's see. Okay.
Aconcagua.
However you say that. The phonetic explanation. Maybe we'll put that in the show notes.
Aconcagua. I think you're right. I think you
Aconcagua.
did well. There you go.
So you can find all that information on the friends or the leaderboard, your friends list, at geocaching.com/play/leaderboard. And that gives you all the instructions, the current point, spread, all that stuff, and how far along you are. Has anybody checked their leaderboard recently?
Well, I made sure to get it. I was out of town yesterday, so I made sure that while I'm in another town, get all the caches there to get my points, so I don't have to worry about using up any local caches. So that was my goal yesterday, and I made it.
Yeah, we've got so geocaching.com/play/leaderboard. That'll give you the current reach the peak and your top 9 friends plus you. And I'm really not focusing so much on getting the most points.
I was in my top 10 yesterday, but that's going to go away so quickly.
Yep, and that one is going till for the month. So whenever when does it change again? The third
First
was this month. So first Monday.
Yeah.
Is that the 6th of February?
That
I don't know.
is February
7th.
7th. Yeah. And who knows what? Oh, yeah. Who knows what mountain that is? I don't think they've announced that yet.
I don't remember.
So yeah, if you haven't done that, check it out and work on climbing those mountains.
Cool.
But on to our topic for this month. It is a great privilege to have with us the wonderful and illustrious Chris Ronan, or Rock Chalk from Geocaching HQ.
Yay!
Welcome. Thanks for being with us.
It's a privilege to be had.
So, what exactly is your role at HQ, and how are you involved with challenge caches? We've never had you on the show before, so it'd be great to hear.
So my title is PR manager at HQ, and so a big part of my job is working with anyone who might be writing a story about geocaching, media outlets, stuff like that. If they write into us and need statistics or want to be put in touch with a geocacher in their area to do something about geocaching. So that's part of what I do. But my role is kind of a hybrid deal because I'm also on the community volunteer support team, which is pretty self-explanatory. We support the community volunteers, and that could be reviewers or forum moderators, translators. And that's actually why I came to HQ. I had a background in public relations and in media, but I was a hardcore geocacher, and I really wanted to work at HQ, and I would have done just about anything that I was even moderately qualified for.
Awesome.
And so when something came up that looked like it, well, if I'm being totally honest, I applied for a number of things, and some of them, they probably got my resume and thought, why is he even bothering? This isn't anywhere close to anything he would do or could do. But then this thing came up on the community volunteer support team, and thankfully they decided, okay, we'll give them a shot. And I did that for a couple of years and really loved it. I had never done anything like that before, but came to really love working with the volunteer community around the world. It's really, really cool to be able to interact with people you guys know how geocaching is. It's played everywhere. And so we get to have relationships with people in in so many different countries. And that's been just eye-opening for me and really enriched my life over the last several years. But after I'd done that for a couple of years, the PR role came open, and they knew that I had a background in that. And so it was a little bit difficult for me, honestly, to take that on, because I was enjoying the community volunteer support stuff so much. And then, to my happy surprise, they said, well, why don't you keep doing the community volunteer support and then take on some PR stuff? And I was like, oh, cool. I didn't know we could do that. And so it's been great. I've been doing both now for the last few years. And as far as how challenges fit into all of that, it actually came up in my job interview, believe it or not. This would have been in the summer of 2014. I've been at HQ about 7 years now. And it came up because it had been something of an issue. And I think they wanted to know how much I knew about challenge caches. And as it turned out, I was really into them. And I think they probably saw my enthusiasm and kind of did this kind of a thing and thought, okay, we'll sick him on this. And so, I did bring in a lot of experience as a player. And then once I got to HQ and started learning some of the issues that were out there with challenge caches back then, I was able to bring my player experience and then also see kind of behind the scenes what was going on too. And that enabled me to play a big role when the moratorium happened, and then with the new guidelines. Our whole team worked on that, and of course the reviewer community was a big part of it too. But if there was a point person, it was probably me, and has continued to be me over the years. But again, we have several members of the team that also work on this topic, among all of the topics that we work on when it comes to guidelines and stuff like that.
Interesting.
I have a little bit of trivia, Geoff, if I may. Chris was on show 7.
Woo.
It was a pre-recorded show, so it wasn't live, but Chris and I talked about Project Ape cache trip that he took.
Oh, yeah.
Remember
that was a long time ago.
Yeah, July. Well, yeah, the show we did was July 24th, 2016.
Oh my gosh.
That's when we did that show.
5 years.
But yeah, a long time ago. But he has been on Geocache Talk, but that was long ago. Now that we're up to, what are we up to? Show, hang on. We're on show 475.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Congratulations on that. That's really amazing. Truly.
Thanks. But yeah, and Chris, though, if I'll just mention real quick, I'll let y'all get back to the topics. But Chris was very instrumental in getting CacheCon put together last year. So a lot of people forget, or a lot of people don't know, that there's always a lot of moving parts when you do something of any size, scale. And so we work closely with HQ for that. And it was a great success for all the team, but also there was a lot of behind the scenes team, as it were. And Chris really helped us to make sure that was done. And so hats off to Chris for helping us accomplish that last year during the beginning of the pandemic. Or was it beginning? It was middle of the pandemic, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, mid.
It all runs together after a while.
When's the end?
Yeah, when's it end? But
Time is all a blur right now, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is.
Thanks for that, Chris.
Yeah. Now you also run the HQ podcast, right?
Correct. I do.
Yes. As soon as I hear your voice, I expect that podcast, even though we're on our podcast.
That's I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing.
It's a good thing.
I've actually had a couple. I was at an event within the last few months, and I was just talking to somebody, and someone nearby actually came over. Do you do the podcast for HQ?
Nice.
And I was like, wow, that's very flattering, but also a little scary.
How often do you do the podcast? Because it doesn't seem to be on a regular schedule. It's kind of like
Yeah, I mean,
big topics.
that's the thing. When I hear numbers like, the 400 and something that you all have done, and so many of folks like yourselves that do something on a weekly basis or even more often, and we aim for monthly. When we started, I really wanted it to be something that when we put an episode out there, that it was something that people would really want to listen to, and that we weren't just doing it just to do it, which, because we could get together and talk about just about anything, but I wanted it to be like, hey, we've got something that's valuable here, and if that means that it's once a month or once every 6 weeks or whatever, then great. It's also a thing where I want the people that I work with to want to do it. So I try not to force it on them. And so that also maybe leads to, I have to do some negotiating over the course of time to get a few different folks. But it's been a lot of fun, and people seem to enjoy it. And, hopefully, we can keep that rolling along on our semi-regular schedule.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What platforms does that go to? Because I have it on Apple Podcasts. It gets posted on the blog as well, I think.
Yeah, it does. It gets posted on the blog. It's on Apple, Google, Stitcher, and Spotify. I think are the platforms that we are using at the moment.
Yeah. Cool.
I don't use any of those, and I'm still able to listen on my little player. So
oh,
I
good.
think you're everywhere.
Good. I'm glad to hear it.
So you also just mentioned the moratorium. We've talked about it a lot on the show already, but could you possibly describe the moratorium in your own words?
Right. I'm kind of curious, I don't know if you want to say certain things, but did challenges feel like a mess to you personally? Or like, I don't know, a challenge for improvement?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I would say that, like I said, before I started working at HQ and I was, hardcore geocacher and really was into challenges pretty heavy too, I was blissfully unaware of there being anything that might be a problem with them. And then I started at HQ, and one thing that our team does is we have an appeals meeting every morning. And so what that is we have a bucket of emails from the community where someone has submitted a cache and the reviewer didn't feel like it was publishable, so the CO can appeal that decision. So we have the bucket from the community where they've asked about their caches. Then we have a bucket from the reviewer community where they might have questions about caches that they're reviewing and they're not quite sure. It may not be a cut and dry case, and they come to us and say, hey, I'd like another set of eyes on this. And so at that appeals meeting, we were seeing, before the moratorium, I would say 70% of the appeals were related to challenge caches.
Wow.
It was really, and the thing with challenge cache appeals was that like challenge caches that can be so subjective, at least before the moratorium, especially, they could be even more subjective than they are now. And because of that, it led to usually pretty lengthy discussions. And so we were spending a lot of time trying to address these issues related to challenge caches, both from the community and from the reviewers. And it was one of those things where we knew, we had a list of things that we thought, okay, we need to address this, and this, but it was almost like a fire hose. We had to stop the water because if we didn't stop it, it was just, we weren't going to have time to really sit down and try to address it in a way that would be meaningful and might allow these things to stay around on a more long-term basis. Because honestly, it was a moment there where they were causing so many issues and taking up so much time that, there were some people that thought, well, gosh, let's just stop. Let's just not do these anymore. But there were a lot of people too that said, no, these are, there's a lot of value for the community with these. And I was certainly one of those people that was saying that, because I was so into them myself as a player. So that's the main reason the moratorium happened. Why we didn't just let them go and try to work on it in the background was we really needed to just shut off the water spigot and have some time to really gather feedback from the community, gather feedback from the reviewers, and then look at all of that and really digest it and say, okay, where can we find places to make improvements that might make for a framework that is long lasting and yeah, it may be difficult for some players to swallow a few changes, but it might be difficult for reviewers too. And can we meet in the middle someplace and find something that hopefully will work to some degree for all the parties that were involved.
Right.
Yeah, I think it was kind of like a trade-off, right? Like you have to reduce some flexibility in order to make things a little more accessible. And so we lose some creativity, some flexibility there, but it brings it to a wider audience.
Yeah, it's funny.
And I certainly think this audience thanks you guys for not just quitting on a really great idea. To some people, it might not have been a really great idea, but, focusing on improving something instead of just walking away.
No,
I think for folks that don't know, HQ didn't start challenge caches. They totally started with the community.
How about that? Yeah. This game is so community driven.
It really is. And that's one of the beauties of them. But you also have to realize that the website wasn't built for them. And so if I really do think that if we could travel back in time and talk to Jeremy back in the year 2000 and say, you need to find a way to build these into the website because they're going to be important to people and they're going to be motivating to people and they're going to keep people engaged with geocaching, that things would have been handled differently back in the year 2000. But as it was, they weren't built into the site. And so Groundspeak /HQ has been was chasing challenge caches for all those years and trying to accommodate them, but just almost being reactive to it rather than, again, taking a step, taking a breath and saying, okay, let's build a framework here that actually works, as opposed to just continuing to do patchwork and guideline updates over and over rather than doing something that's a little more holistic, which is what we tried to do during the moratorium.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see it being a really tough concept though, because with geocaching, people were trying to come up with creative ways to and other ways to enjoy the hobby. So those ALRs came. You can only log this cache as found if you also do this, and there was no rules against it. It's just people got creative and thought, oh hey, I can do this, and so ran with it. It's kind of like the thing called the Desire Trail. Landscapers will create a garden or something and put walkways, but then people will want to find better ways to get from A to B. And after a while, you start to get what we know as a geotrail. But and so the landscapers have to decide, okay, are we going to stop people from taking this trail of desire, or are we going to somehow incorporate it into the design?
Exactly.
And so I think like HQ has had to deal with that with challenge caches. It just naturally evolved from the way people played the game. But now how do we make it so that it doesn't just go haywire and that as many people can enjoy it, but we can keep a rein on it and make sure it stays good and relevant?
There's several questions that we've highlighted now, which is with StreamYard, we can do what's called starred comments. So keep your comments coming. The host will get to them. We've got 7 questions in there right now, guys. So just keep an eye on questions for you guys and for Rock Chalk. But anyway, you guys keep going. It's great.
Yep. Before we get to the question, there was one other thing. So do you have any pre-moratorium and post-moratorium challenge concepts that you liked the most?
Well, for me, and it's pre and post, you guys were talking about the DT grid earlier. That's certainly the thing that personally continues to motivate me as a cacher. And honestly, I'm to the point with the DT grid where there aren't any challenges that necessarily apply.
Just personal.
Yeah, exactly. It's totally personal. Nobody's going to create a challenge for filling your DT grid 80 something times. So I'm it's all personal. What I would say is that, DeLorme challenges are something that I've enjoyed doing.
Mm-hmm.
As far as post-moratorium, I wouldn't say a concept so much as the one thing I would call out about post-moratorium that I'm just really thankful that it happened was that the challenge checker requirement went in there. I don't even remember whose idea that was, as we were spitballing ideas during the moratorium, but I'm so happy that Magnus and Project GC have been such a great partner with that, and that all of the volunteers who write those checkers,
right.
The work that they do on behalf of the community has really made a huge difference. I mean, I know for me, prior to the moratorium, so many of those challenges that I didn't have a PC, I had a Mac, and so it was hard for me to use GSAC. And if I did, I think I installed a virtual PC on my Mac at one point, and it was a pain to use, but at least I could use GSAC. And then, you're trying to import your MyFinds deal and sort and look for, it was just being able to click a button and find out if you qualify or not is just, to me, the best thing about post-moratorium. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with that.
Cool.
And it's funny because some people would say that the act of determining if you qualify was part of the difficulty of the challenge cache.
I know. I can't decide. Sometimes I'm okay with it because it gives me something to do, mindlessly search through my cache finds. But then other times I'm so done with that, the laborious work of searching through your cache finds. So yeah.
I had a challenge recently that I was looking at my list on Project GC of stuff that I had posted write notes, different challenges I had posted a note on that I hadn't looked to see if I qualified yet. And there was one that I think it was about animal names, something like that, one of those pre-moratorium challenges. And every time I would look at it, I was just like, oh, I can't do it. I would just, it reminded me of the scene from Pee-wee's Big Adventure where he goes into the pet store that's on fire and he's rescuing all the pets, and he looks at the snakes and he keeps passing up the snakes. That's like what this challenge was like for me. I would just keep.
That is so awesome.
So finally, a couple weeks ago, I was just like, oh, all right, I have to do this. So I finally sat down and did it. But so just being able to click that button is just fantastic.
Yeah, I'm seeing some comments in our chat that people are thankful for those checkers. They didn't have time for all that bookkeeping work.
Yeah. And you also mentioned DeLorme. That's a pre-moratorium challenge concept. It's not allowed anymore. Jim Stark kind of touched on that in a question. He asked, are we ever going to have some of the past moratorium restrictions relaxed a bit, such as DeLorme cache name, owner name based, reasonable find count in a day, or as long as a checker is available? All of those are requirement. The latter ones are requirements, but I think, the text-based searches and DeLorme are no longer allowed. I think we can already guess an answer to that question.
Yeah, because we've heard that. We've heard people say, but I can build a checker for that, versus the nature of the guidelines that HQ developed for a reasonable playing platform, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, as I'm looking at each of those examples, they each have kind of a different reason behind them. For instance, DeLorme, we had a product manager that worked at HQ. He unfortunately moved on to a new opportunity, but was a heavy cacher. And during the moratorium, we had determined that stuff like DeLorme probably, or other map book challenges, like out here in Washington State, in the Seattle area, we have Thomas Guide challenges as well. And we had determined that those probably weren't going to be permitted. And a big reason for it was that that information isn't available on the website. So I told him, I said, hey, you know, if you can, because he was kind of bummed about it. And I said, well, if you can get the product team to add DeLorme information to cache pages, then, you know, maybe we can do something with that. And he was like, you know, he knew that was a huge project and it probably wouldn't happen. So what I would say as far as flexibility goes is it will probably be mostly determined by whether there are different advancements with the website itself. So for instance, within the last year, the challenge cache attribute was introduced. So before then, you could not have a challenge cache to find X number of challenge caches. Mm-hmm. But once we added that attribute, you could. So I think it would require stuff like that. It would require additional functionality being added to the site, and if and when it is, then maybe there's an opportunity for some more flexibility. The one thing I would say, the only other thing I would say about that particular question was it was interesting saying a reasonable number, a reasonable find count per day, and that gets into it. It's like, okay, what's reasonable? And so that is a big part of the problem with challenge caches is it's so subjective, and it's trying to figure out, okay, what's the number? Because 50 might be reasonable to you, and 5 may be reasonable to somebody else, and that's one of the things that can make them so difficult is trying to figure out what is a reasonable number for those things. So again, it's kind of different reasoning between each of those examples that he provided, but interesting stuff to think about.
Yeah. And reviewers didn't really want to have to deal with that either, because those questions of reasonability were often left on their laps as well, and then they got a lot of flack for their judgment calls if a challenge was allowed in one state or province and not in another one, and then the reviewers got all the hate for it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It could be very contentious with those reviews, especially before the moratorium, because you know a person creates a challenge cache and it's something that they've put a lot of time and thought into, and to be told no for a very subjective reason doesn't feel good. And so when I talked earlier about how much time went into looking at appeals related to challenge caches, it was not just the time, but it was also just the emotional drain that went into it too, because unfortunately there were a lot of times when you would look at everything, us on the appeals team would look at everything and say, okay, we're going to have to say no to this. And the response would be, let's just say passionate. And when you get that over and over again, and the reviewers, as you said, Geoff, the reviewers got that as well. And so that's, it's difficult on them too. And the other thing is, these reviewers, most of them are reviewing hundreds and thousands of caches a year. So when there's one that comes along that requires an inordinate amount of time or an inordinate amount of what can be unpleasant back and forth with somebody, anything that we can do to reduce that subjectivity and try to keep the process being more transparent and clear to all sides is something that's very valuable.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Another question from KC11 came in about Adventure Labs. Right now, Adventure Labs, they can be used in challenges for total find counts, I believe. But he's asking if challenge caches can be allowed to be associated with Adventure Labs, specifically, for example, completing 50 Adventure Labs before logging the mystery cache.
Right, and so Adventure Labs cannot be specified in challenge caches. So what KC11 is referring to is specifying Adventure Labs. It's saying you have to complete X number of adventures or X number of lab caches. That is not permitted. But as you said, Geoff, if it's involved in total find count or if it's not specified, like if you were to say have a challenge to find any 10 cache types and you included lab cache as one of the cache types that were allowed, that would be fine. But you couldn't say find 10 and one of them has to be lab cache, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And so there's no plans to make any adjustments to that?
Well, not in the immediate. So it's something that we have talked about pretty recently. Now, when the moratorium happened, the reason for it at that time was because this was before Adventure Lab, of course, before the app. And lab caches were really only seen mostly at mega events and stuff like that. So they were pretty temporary, and it was hard to get to them unless you were somebody that went to mega events. Now the Adventure Lab app is out there, so obviously they are much more easy to find than they used to be. However, the Adventure Lab app is still somewhat experimental, and the Adventure Lab team wants to have freedom to develop that app without feeling like they have to say, okay, we need to do this, this, and this because these are involved in challenge caches. So for the time being, it will be that they can't be specified. I can't predict what might happen a year or 2 years from now or whatever, but that's the reasoning for it at this point.
You make a good point as well, I think, because the Adventure Labs are kind of their own thing, and they're just loosely connected in. And I hadn't thought about that. Like, being only loosely connected into geocaching stats gives them the flexibility to make changes and do things without having to, find all the connections that have to be fixed and copied over to the main site with the new stats and all that stuff. It gives them a little more freedom for development for the concept.
Yeah, I think us as players, we see them out there and it feels very much like it's part of geocaching. If like today, I was out there, I found some geocaches, I found some Adventure Lab stuff. And so it was all part of my day. I didn't really think of it as being that I was playing two separate games.
Right.
But from a development standpoint, they are two separate ecosystems, and it's a matter of figuring out how much are they going to intermingle over time. So it's still in the early days of figuring that out, which, again, I can understand as a player that might be hard to swallow because they do seem like they're pretty together in a lot of ways. But from a development standpoint, that's not so much the case.
Yeah.
So there was another question as well. You reportedly, you also travel a lot. Does geocaching or working on challenges inspire your travels and destinations?
Yes, Chris, that was partly my question because everywhere I go, I see your name on the log. So you beat me to everywhere, no matter where I've traveled.
Oh, that's funny. It feels like it used to drive me a little bit more when I was. It still does. I mean, as I said before, the DT grid is something that. So I use that matrix mapping on Project GC, and if I'm going to be traveling, like I was in not far from Gary's neck of the woods not too long ago, and so I looked and I'm like, okay, what's there in the Dallas Metroplex that I might be able to do to bump up that DT grid. So I definitely still do that. But if I'm being honest, and I have to admit, I'm kind of shamed about this, there are times when I will go someplace and then come home and then look at my list of challenge caches that maybe I've signed and I haven't qualified for, and then I'll realize, oh my gosh, there was a cache in Dallas that I could have found. I mean, that has happened more times than I hate to admit it. Like I said, I feel shame. I feel like, especially in this group of luminaries that I'm speaking with, and the folks in the chat are probably throwing tomatoes at their screens. But
we are just like you. I hate it when that happens.
Sometimes
It's happened to all of us at some point, for sure.
Casey has followed up with a good question, which I think I know the answer to, so I'm going to take a stab at it. He just asked, could a challenge be created that reads something like find 10 Adventure Lab bonus caches in order to log the mystery cache? I'm going to guess that you can make the challenge for finding bonus caches, but not Adventure Lab bonus caches, because there's no property for that.
You are exactly right. Bonus cache you could do because of that attribute. You could say find X number of caches with the bonus cache attribute, but there would not be, as you said, a property connected to Adventure Lab that would be an acceptable criteria that you'd be able to tie into that.
Yeah, because we just had one challenge like that pop up in my area just for bonus caches since the attribute was made available, and yeah, that counts for puzzle series, like a set of caches where the final is the bonus once you complete those other caches. So yeah, it could include Adventure Labs, but it can't be exclusive.
Yeah, Butterfly
that-
Girl is saying she
yeah.
just did a challenge for finding the
bonus
bonus
attribute.
cache attribute. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. So Chris, it has to be asked. I don't know what the answer might be, but are challenge caches considered done at HQ, or is there still room for some future improvement?
Well, I think I would say what kind of repeat a little bit of what I said before, as far as if I had to guess, it would be mostly dependent on what happens with various features and search capabilities and stuff like that on the website would be my guess. I wouldn't say done, because again, I don't know where the website's going or where functionality's going, and I don't know. I'm done trying to figure out what the community is going to do, because every time I try to predict, they zig and zag on me, and I've given up trying to keep up with that. So who knows? I wouldn't say done, but again, I do personally think that it's probably going to be largely dependent on stuff like we just talked about, those new attributes that came out earlier this year. You know, the bonus cache attribute, the solution checker, the challenge cache, and so once those attributes came out, it opened up a little more flexibility. You know, maybe we add new search functionality that also opens it up in some way that I can't predict. But that would be my guess.
So essentially, there's no current plans, but it's not closed off.
Right. No, there's no current plans, and there's no there's nobody that is on the other side either that has said this is it, nothing else.
Good.
We'll add another comment from the Pizza Ninja to round things out. He wants to give a little bit of a compliment. I love the behind the scenes and the story that comes across on the Geocaching HQ podcast, and I have to echo that. It's nice to listen to that because you get that look behind the scenes. Whether it's interviewing other lackeys or just talking about new features. It also brings HQ to the community a little more personably, which is great to see.
Right. I love how things work. So that's why I love the HQ podcast. Even this conversation, we get to hear some of how things work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's really nice of the Pizza Ninja to say, and I'm that avatar makes me kind of hungry. Haven't had dinner yet, but for us, or at least for me, I've never wanted our podcast to be a marketing piece. I don't want it to sound like we're just using it to, pump up whatever latest thing that we're doing. It's important to do that. There are avenues for that, but I've always wanted the podcast to be an opportunity to get more into the nuts and bolts of stuff that maybe you can't go into in a short blog post. And also just selfishly, it's been a chance for me as somebody who's, geocaching is such a big part of my life, to be able to, I've gotten to sit down with Jeremy and Brian and talk about the history of geocaching, and we did one on waymarking recently, and I've kind of gotten into waymarking a little bit since the pandemic, and so it was fun to be able to ask them just what I felt like were kind of geeky questions, about how waymarking started, and it just gives us an opportunity to go a little more in depth on projects and features, and then also I do think it's fun to get to know some of the people that work at HQ, and it's funny. I remember for some reason I just thought about this review that we had. I think it was on Apple. Somebody said, I think it was a bad review from their standpoint. They said, it sounds like just two coworkers talking about what they do. And he obviously didn't like that, but I personally saw that and thought, well, yeah, that's kind of what it is. And
that's what we want to know. Your niche community wants to know.
Yeah. If that's not your bag, then that's cool. But I think there's a lot of people out there that do kind of like geeking out over the minutia, that goes on behind the scenes. So I'm glad to hear that a few of you enjoy it, and
I'm seeing a lot in the comments. A lot of people are echoing that.
Oh, good. Well, I'll take a screenshot and I'll show it to the people that have been resistant at the office, because some of them are like, "Why would anybody care hearing about what I do?"
We all care.
And I keep telling them, I say, "Believe me, people care," and because a lot of them, I'll go to a developer or I'll go to, I could give any example and they'll say, well, I don't have anything to talk about, like a feature that just came out that I worked on. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. Just come on and talk about what it's like to build the app or what it's like to work on the website behind the scenes. Yeah. All of that stuff is fun for somebody to hear about out there.
Yeah.
We had Geocache on Podcast to Hope this year. And Brian too. It was great having those two on, but not the same hour, but having Geocache on and just talking and people just love to hear about, especially people who are like, she's very new to HQ, but also just hearing people talk about, like you said, Chris, just the thing they do every day, is just,
to us, HQ is a magical
we
place.
Love it.
We want to know.
Well, it's funny you say that. I remember, I've told people a number of times that for me, going to work at HQ as a geocacher was a lot like I think Charlie Bucket probably felt when he got to go to Willy Wonka's chocolate factory.
Right.
And then you work there for a little while and yes, it's great. And I love going there. And I stopped by today because I was just in the area geocaching and I just stopped in and every time I walk in, I still kind of have the same feeling that I had the first time I walked in. And then there are days when it's just an office, and you feel like, why would anybody want to just see an office? And you have to remind yourself of what it felt like before, before you came to work there. And it is just, yes, it's just an office, but there's also special stuff that happens there. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I think you have to remind yourself, because if you go to the office every day, well, during normal times, go to the office every day, and you may forget a little bit that it is a place that we are so lucky that such a large number of people see it as special and see it as a place that they want to go and want to be a part of. And it's one of the super cool things about working there. And one of the things that sucked about this pandemic is having to not have our visitor center open, because that was one of the best things, was being able to just walk out there, and almost every time you walked out there, there'd be somebody there, and they're there from Europe, or they're there from Asia, or they're there from somewhere else in Canada or the US, and they've based their vacation around coming here. And you just kind of have to take a step back and say, oh my gosh, these people want to make a special trip to our office. That's such a cool thing.
Hey, there's Gia. She just jumped in. Gia says, I still pinch myself every time my key card lets me into the HQ. Honored to serve this incredible community of geocachers. Also love the podcast too, Chris. So
well,
thanks, Gia.
We are lucky to have Gia joining the group of lackeys. And unfortunately, due to the pandemic, I think I've only seen her once in the office, but hopefully things will get back to normal and we'll get to see each other more often.
Exactly.
If you think about it, there's only one headquarters for the entire world. So it's going to attract everybody from around the world. Yeah. It's not like there's a European headquarters. It's like, no, there's just one HQ.
Yeah.
You've got to get there.
Yeah, and like I said, hopefully sooner than later we'll be able to welcome people back in again, because that's been a big loss. Certainly for us, and I know for folks that want to want to come in and see us.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Chris, for joining us and being able to share a little about your experience with challenge caches. It's great to hear.
Thank you very much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Any time, I'm happy to come on, and it was a real pleasure to talk to all of you.
All right,
And
maybe
hello
we
to
won't
everybody in
wait
the chat.
6 years.
Right?
Yeah, hopefully it won't be that long again.
I feel like I have to go to Brazil again to get back on the show. I got to do something big.
We'll fix that.
Well,
we won't do that again. We talk,
Yeah.
but we just don't have it on. But we need to have you on more often for sure.
Yeah. I think it's a great time to move on to our Wheel of Challenges, our monthly contest.
Wheel of Challenges.
Yeah, this could
I
be
have to
new
play
for
that.
some of our viewers who've never tuned into Challenge Talk before. So
That's true.
It is the Wheel of Challenges.
So
Every
pay
month-
attention. We have a live in this moment game for you guys.
Woohoo!
Yep. Once a month, a live viewer. So if you're not listening live or watching live, be sure to join us next month. One live viewer every month gets selected to face off against the wheel and has a chance to win the grand prize, which is a 1-year premium membership on Project GC. To enter, send an email with a subject containing "spin me" followed by your geocaching username in brackets and the answer to the following question. The first verified user gets the wheel, and your profile will be checked live on Project GC. And if you qualify, you win. That is your question. What is the name of the current souvenir challenge mountain to climb? And you have to have the correct spelling.
Correct spelling.
That could be another question for Chris. The souvenirs. I've always kind of felt that the souvenirs were a form of challenge. Quite a while back, I even thought about what the possibility was of perhaps awarding souvenirs for certain challenge accomplishments or statistical accomplishments, kind of like achievement badges. But then we already have that a little bit with Project GC's badges. But is there any potential of maybe incorporating challenges and statistics into souvenirs? In a way, we kind of already have that, I guess, with things like the dailies. I think there's a couple of other souvenir challenges that had that. But like Fizzy Grid achievement badge or souvenir or something like that.
Yeah, no, it's an achievement system is something that we have talked about. It would be a huge project, but it is something that has been discussed. I would say never about it, but it's not something that has gone undiscussed. Let's just put it that way.
But yeah, I agree. Those I cannot resist any challenge that comes out of HQ. I will do whatever I need to do to earn that souvenir. So yeah, I do feel like they're a great form of challenges as well, even though they're not a challenge cache. You tell me to do it, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, even just for the fun of a themed little adventure, finding
Yeah,
caches
the
that are specific to the
themes.
theme.
I love the geocoins that they make to match the theme. And it just gives me a new direction to take my geocaching in. A very specific direction.
Yep. So we have answers coming in, and the first answer that is correct is our regular listener, Bloody Cool.
Bloody cool.
The answer is Aconcagua. I'm
Yay!
guessing that's how it's spelled.
And spelled
Or
correctly.
pronounced. Did you have any meetings to try to determine how to, or which mountains to choose and how to pronounce them?
Oh, well, thankfully I wasn't in the meetings, but there were definitely meetings. That's the marketing team at HQ, and I know they also work with the community engagement team to try to suss out the various souvenir challenges and coming up with some of those interesting ideas for, in this case, the mountains. So, but no, I can't claim any knowledge of how they decided on which ones.
Some of them are so obscure, but I mean, it's an educational, geographical,
It's a fun idea.
educational
Absolutely.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a great idea.
All right, so Bloody Cool is up. we are going to spin the wheel. Which one? Oh, he's got a 5 difficulty. Oh, this one is very obvious. GC 9119D. 31 dates of tree climbs. He probably already knows if he qualifies, but let's load up the challenge. This one was placed, in 2020, January. It is in Ontario, owned by Carney Gruel, and it is a 5 difficulty, 4.5 terrain. The challenge here is to find a tree climb on every date of the month. So, regardless of the month, you have to have from 1 to 31, all those dates, at least one tree climb.
Wow.
That's tough.
I'm trying to get to the checker now.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've got a lot of tree climbs around, it's not too hard to do. It's just you got to do the tree climbs.
On specific days.
Yeah. Bloody cool. Put it into the profile name. Select it and run the checker. Drum roll. Not quite. 14 days out of 31.
He's got quite a few, though.
Yeah. The nice thing about this one is that it actually shows you the dates so you can plan ahead. So for
I like
example,
that about checkers, too.
Yeah. The ones that are nicely written that actually show you the results. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll help you plan. Because now on your calendar, you can be like, okay, in this coming month, on the 1st and the 4th and the 5th and 7th and all those missing dates, you can say, find a tree climb cache.
Interesting.
And ideally, you could qualify this within a month.
Yeah.
In theory.
So,
yep.
Sadly, bloody cool. Didn't qualify yet. Maybe in the future he'll send us an email. Qualified.
Yes, maybe that's your inspiration.
So, the other contest that we have, every month we like to highlight a congratulatory shout out to listeners who email us proof of qualifying and logging a challenge cache since the last show. And anyone who sends an email to challengetalkpodcast@gmail.com with the GC code having a found it log, so you must have found it. And if you want, you can include a photo if you'd like to share as well, a story, an explanation about your find, all that. For that month, you'll be entered into the prize giveaway for a Challenge Talk Geocoin. And I keep forgetting to pull one out.
Mine's back in my holder. I've given the rest away. We've had so many winners.
So we have a few to do a quick little shout out for. So we
Here you
have.
go. There's the challenge.
There it is.
Yep, there it is. The beauty. One of the set of at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 coins for the Geocache Talk Network. So first of all, let's take a look at one that Bloody Cool himself has sent in. It's GC 360 ZH, Maryland's top 10 challenge. And there it is. So in this one is a 5 difficulty, 1 terrain. I have a large screen now. It's very small. And it's in Maryland. And the next one actually is similar to this, but I like this because this is encouraging people to look for the highly favorited caches in a region. So in this particular case, you have to find 10 of the top 20 favorited geocaches in Maryland.
Oh, that's a great idea.
And I think these challenges are fairly common, favorite point challenges and whatnot. But there was that one and another one sent in by Will602, which is the Planner Challenge Dutch Masters. And that one you have to find 25 out of 30 of the top favorited traditional caches in the Netherlands.
Okay.
Another variation.
25 of 30. Okay.
But it gets you searching because, if you look at the top 30 favorited caches in wherever, they may not all be traditionals. They might be filled with something else.
Right.
So this at least,
Gotcha.
gets you to experience the best of something.
Yeah, all of those types of challenges, you're going to have a great time, obviously. The community has spoken. This is where you should travel to.
They've earned those favorite points. So hopefully there's a good reason why. Another one sent in by J6 family is GC3MDN0 10,000 miles or more geocaching challenge. 10,000 miles. This one is one big paragraph of text, but you can find it where it says the challenge is to find 100 caches at least 100 miles from your home coordinates, because 100 times 100 is 10,000.
Oh, okay,
And
gotcha.
yeah, this was a good one because it encourages traveling. And if you look at your stats as well, I believe the official one, it has, or maybe it's Project GC, shows you your distance bands from home. I think, yeah, there it is. So distance to finds. If you look at this kind of gives you an idea of how much you travel. So it's a good way to get you looking at this one as well, and trying to find lots and experience other regions. I think we sometimes get spoiled with our own home regions. We get so used to our local cachers, and so yeah, I thought that was a good one to get people to encourage.
Absolutely, that's a great
100
one.
miles. What was that in kilometers? 2.5.
100. Come on, we can do
It's
it.
like 200 and something. No, 100. No.
Google it.
Yeah, 150, 170, something like that. I can't remember what the conversion is. We
100
have,
miles is 160.934 kilometers.
not too bad.
Whereas
150,
I says
right in the middle.
as a kid, I would say kilometers. It's like, no, that's not the way I said. Kilometers.
I've used both of those pronunciations in different contexts as well. I don't know. They're both valid.
Both valid. So
We have another one in from Merlin 1392, GC9H8R0 is the advanced challenge. So this is the hardest of another common theme of having like a basic, medium, and difficult version of challenges, to find 800 finds in December.
Cool.
And this, it's
No way.
I think this is a series, so there's one for each month, and the numbers are different. Obviously, I think a lot of people, I don't know how many, do you cache much in December? Because that's Christmas. It could be busy.
So either you're really busy with Christmas or you have a lot of extra time off for
and
Christmas.
it's winter months.
Maybe, depending on where you are.
yeah, depending on that's true. If you're down with Ozvox and Darren, they're down in Australia, so it's summer for them.
Yeah.
Yep. And while over here, we love caching in the winter. There's a benefit to every season.
There really
You
is.
just got to change your mindset.
True.
And wear the proper clothes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And this is actually on a trail of 92 challenges, Merlin
Cool.
1392 says. And when he found this one, he qualified for 90 of them.
Nice.
It sounds like a lot, but you never know. They could be all like 1 to 3 difficulty. This one, though, is 4.5 or 5 difficulty. 800 in December. I think it could be hard for a lot of people.
It depends on your caching. Like Chris said earlier, people cache differently. So
Yeah.
15 a day for some people is outrageous. For 15 a day for others, and so 800 in a month. Depends on.
Yeah,
how
there's a
many-
few factors. There's like how many still around that you need to find, and how much you enjoy caching in either the deep of winter or the deep of summer.
And some don't cache. I mean, we talk about that on our show, on all the time, and that is, I don't cache like other people cache, and that's okay. That's the beauty of geocaching, is that, you cache the way you want to cache.
Exactly. It's awesome
So-
like that.
Yeah.
And it's another example of a cache that you could, if you wanted to, go find it and sign it, and then you might not qualify for 10 years.
Right. Make a note though, right, Chris? Don't want to forget.
Exactly right.
Because I've done that as well. But yeah, I ran around with Memphis, Jesse one time here in DFW area, just like you did, and I signed all kind of challenges. There's no way I could do any of those, but Jesse had done them, so he wanted to sign them. So I'm like, oh yeah, put my name on it. Doesn't matter. I can't log it, but anyway, so it's kind of funny.
So we have another one sent in from Zippertiff. It is GC5M42P Moose's Challenge, 750 trackables. Oh, this is like a love it or hate it.
It's like the snakes in the Pee Wee Herman thing, right?
Yep. In this one, continuation of other trackable challenges he's created. Simply prove you have discovered or moved 750 trackables or more.
Wow.
And that's an easy stat. It's visible on your public profile. It's an easy one to see. It's just, that's a lot of trackables. Some people, you go to a mega event, there's tables and people will just get all the codes and discover them all. It's a lot of work to discover that many. And because we have one for discovering 1,000 trackables in Ontario here, and I'm still not qualified. But then I've got like a folder of hundreds and hundreds of photos of codes that I haven't discovered yet.
Oh, wow.
So that's not in your stats, right? That's in your profile?
Profile, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
There's,
gotcha.
just on that list of numbers of finds and whatnot, there's a stat for number of travel bugs.
Oh, okay,
I think it's
cool,
I think it's everything. If you interacted with, discovered, and picked up, moved, all that.
Moved.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, there's a trackable challenge that I was working on trying to gather the qualifiers recently. So when you put that up there, it made me think of it. It was to find or to discover a trackable or move a trackable that originates in every state. And I think 10 countries. And it is a nightmare to try to.
Wow.
Because you got to go through you can go to your trackable logs, but then you have to click into every one and look at where they originated from. And I think I'm down to, there's 4 states that I haven't, but there's no way to search for them. There's no way to do it with GSAC or any of that. So
I did that challenge too, and somebody found me something. There was a tool, and then that tool told me I only needed a trackable from Rhode Island, and somehow I pulled that off. I think that if it's the same challenge, it's at PDX airport area, and
probably right.
Wow. So I don't normally fly out of PDX, but the stars aligned. I found the Rhode Island. I flew through PDX. I was able to get that challenge.
Wow.
So there's a tool somewhere. I'm going to have to maybe figure that out, where that came from.
Yeah, that would be great because like I said, it's a little like Pee Wee Herman again. It's the snake.
I love this.
The snakes. I'll go and look at it and I'll think, okay, I'll go through a few more and nothing happens and I get frustrated and I put it away again.
Walk away.
Yeah. Hide and Seek found me that information. So I'll have to go back and see what he found for me and share that.
Yeah, that is an interesting concept. I like that one. I'd never thought about that. I mean, I guess that would be a pre-moratorium. That's definitely not post-moratorium. That wouldn't be allowed.
That's right, yeah. And a lot of times, I don't know how you guys are, but if I'm out caching, I'll just dump any challenge caches from that area onto my list. And I don't even necessarily look to see if I qualify for them. I just go ahead and sign them. And then I feel obligated to try to qualify. It's like, why can't I just say no? Why can't I just delete my right note and say I'm not going to even try?
Yeah.
I'm just, I don't know what that is about me.
Yeah. It's a good practice in delayed gratification.
Right.
You go to an area, you find, you sign, you log it online. But with challenge caches, you find, you sign, not yet. But now you got to wait and qualify.
Yeah.
One other shout out to make. Gary of the GBs sent in some emails. He mentioned that he now qualifies for, or has now qualified for, at least 3,146 challenges in 11 countries.
Woo!
What? That's insane.
That is a lot of caching, if you think about it, to qualify for 3,000 caching.
You're right.
Challenge
You're
caching.
right.
Yeah.
That is a
Yeah.
lot of geocaching under his belt.
A lot of variety, I would think, too, right? I
Mhm.
mean,
Yeah.
to qualify
Yeah.
for that many, you have to kind of.
That might not be found. I wonder if Project GC actually provides. I think it does provide that list, like a statistic that says you qualify, or we've determined that you qualify for this number of challenges.
All right. I know what I'm doing after the show.
Yeah.
Look into that.
First thing you do, go check. I'm going
I was
right
gonna say,
now.
listening to the show is a little bit like, I don't know, an addict going to a like a drug dealer's meeting. I mean, my gosh, it's like every time you put one of these things, like I'm writing down, okay, Manistee County Challenge Trail. Okay, now I got to go to Michigan. It's like I've
That's
got
right.
all this stuff I got to do now. You guys are giving me more stuff to do.
You're welcome.
You know, we say it's
That
not about
is
the
a you're
numbers.
welcome,
but-
but we'll take it as a you're welcome. It's funny.
One last update I love to at least highlight at the end of every show is just an update to the challenge cache that I put out pre-moratorium called the Iron Bingo Challenge. It's GC3D5EB, and it is a bingo grid of basically consecutive challenges, consecutive find challenges, and for example, having five consecutive days of where it goes. That's not too hard. But 3 consecutive days of over 10-kilometer hikes, or it's 5 days of scuba caches. Somewhere on that grid, it's there. But you've got to create or complete a line in order to qualify for the challenge. And the center is 100 consecutive days of caching. And this was a pre-moratorium challenge. There were checkers for each of the squares, but there is now a Project GC checker for the entire challenge. Save a few of them because it's not possible to have checkers for some of the squares, but you can use that to determine if you qualify. And I initially had opened the door for rewarding people who complete specific shapes or the full card to earn the reward of a geocoin once it's minted, and it's in progress. So I decided to open it up to listeners of this Challenge Talk podcast to work towards completing the full bingo grid of this challenge. And so every month we like to highlight if there's any updates. And the latest update, there are people locally at least who have been finding it and signing in who don't yet qualify. But not another person has yet qualified for the full grid. So if you love consecutive caching and some of these are still possible, or work towards completing the entire full grid, you could get yourself a special geocoin once it's done. There are people who have completed the entire grid within that 100-day minimum number of days, that center square.
That's so
And
cool.
It was just intense. Maybe at some future show we'll get some people on to chat about that experience.
Yeah. Well, Owen from KC says he's been working on some of your weekly challenges on the bingo grid.
Awesome. Excellent. It's great to hear. I still need to qualify for this as well. I mention it every month, but I need to plan for it. We'll have to see. There is one line that is easy. If you just want to qualify for the challenge, there's one line that's generally easy for everybody to qualify. But yeah, the whole thing, it's crazy. Good luck, good challenging. See if you can do it.
Well, jumping back real quick, Gary says just check the challenge tab on your Project GC profile to see those qualifying numbers.
Oh, okay. So it does give a summary in your stats summary, basically on the dashboard. Yeah. It makes sense. I don't see why not. If you're a premium member, if you have a membership with them, then it will be updated live. They run those checkers through premium member profiles automatically. If you don't, I think you have to manually put your profile in to be checked. I believe that's how it works.
All right. Thanks, Gary.
Yeah. On that note, any closing thoughts, any questions, any comments about challenge caches or 2022? Any plans for this year? Challenge goals?
Let's do them. I almost got one last night, and then I looked on the satellite view, and I was driving home after dark, and it was in a cemetery, and I thought, I'm going to obey the rules. I'm not going to go get that one. But my plans didn't go perfectly anyways yesterday, so I have a return trip planned, and that is now on the return trip.
Hopefully the events, I think I've mentioned working on the year grid and whatnot, but hopefully with events this year, as long as those all work out and the travel plans follow through, then I'll certainly be looking for a lot of these older and rarer caches for some of these challenges that have been put on hold. I have a list of challenges I'm working on, and there's a whole segment that are all travel challenges that require U.S. states and whatnot, and they're just sitting there waiting.
And you're trapped.
Trapped.
So hopefully this year.
Yeah. So in case people are wondering, Challenge Talk will be on again. If I got to make sure if I get the date right, but it should be on February 6th.
Yes.
Will be a Challenge Talk. The 43 means that's how many shows we've done combined, all the different network shows, in case you're wondering. So I'm going to start adding that in case you ever want to know.
All right.
We'll
And Geoff,
500. Yep.
The chat pointed out we did not announce the coin winner out of those people who submitted their challenge finds.
Oh, yes, that's right.
So sorry about that, guys.
Right over that. This month's winner is Will 602. So
Cool.
congratulations, Will 602.
Thanks for contributing.
We'll be in contact to get your info and send you that coin.
Cool.
So show notes will be posted as usual shortly after the show airs. It'll be in the video description and various places. And as Gary said, the next show will be the first Sunday of February 6th. Same time, same place.
Now the next show, I'll put it in the chat room, but the next show is actually Tuesday with Derek. It'll be and Chad doing Gadget Talk. How to weather and paint a cache. That is on Tuesday. And then next Sunday, we're going to do, it'll be a gadget talk. It'll be a geocache talk. Don't confuse everything, Gary. Keep it together. There you go. So that'll be a show with, actually K-Blast is going to be on. We're going to talk about some caches he's found that are pretty amazing. So,
all right.
Yeah.
And
Sure
I
follow...
would like, go ahead, Geoff. Well, I would like to tell everyone that you need this. If you haven't purchased the coins or this chest for the Cache Fest coins, this is just amazing. This crate that holds, I sealed it too hard.
it's tight.
It's tight, but it holds the 3 guitar geocoins. You guys, you have got to check this out. Go to cachefest.com, go to the shop. This is just such a unique set of coins to own that will help support getting Cache Fest running this year.
Paid for.
Yeah, paid for. So not only
Pay
will
the
it help
bills.
us, it is such an awesome thing to have in your collection.
And I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, yes. Make sure to follow Geocache Talk on social media because all of the upcoming shows are shared and announced when the topics are known and made public. So make sure to follow on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, all of that.
We're going to update the website too, just to let people, because people are asking, and it's, I know it's confusing right now since we're combining everything to Saturday except for Gadget Talk. So we're going to work with Derek. We're going to get the show calendar updated a little more on. So if you ever wonder what's going to be on Saturday, what's going to be on Sunday, what's going to be on Saturday, what's going to be on Sunday, you go to the geocachetalk.com and you'll find it.
Yep. Thank you, Chris, for joining us once again and
Thanks, Chris.
dealing with our
Thanks.
questions and our grilling.
No, it was a lot of fun, and I've enjoyed scrolling through the comments and seeing a lot of some friends in there, and some of my Kansas, my fellow Kansans,
Yes.
Ryan and Owen in there, and other folks. It's a lot of fun seeing some of the comments there.
Great.
Yes, thank you to all of the listeners and chatters who joined us for this live show at a different time. Maybe we've got some new listeners. Maybe we've brought over all our old listeners, but it's been active and it's great to see.
And so a reminder to all our new listeners, send in your challenge finds to challengetalkpodcast@gmail.com so you can be a part of that, potentially being featured and winning that Challenge Talk coin. We love to hear what you're up to. And send us your challenge questions. We want to bring those into show topics as well.
Yep. We love hearing from you. So on that note, remember, it's not about the numbers, it's about the challenge. Thank you, and we will see you next month.
Good night.